happens. Just stopping by to tell you to stop it. Stop that. Stop that thing that you're doing. And redirect all of your attention right directly back here to the Fringe FM.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden. As a part of a family that explores the consciousness. I am the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and we are live on the Fringe FM. I hate doing that. We're live on the Fringe FM. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook and KTOK Digital Broadcasting. The main website is fringe.fm. That's www.fringe.fm. So we have got some support. We still got to hit our goal for the month. I don't know how some of these radio stations, like, no offense, everybody's got their own budgets, but some of these cats, man, like, they need, it's crazy how much money they need to run these stations. But they do have more people running them, so it's whatever. But yesterday we got a donation from Michael and Monica. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. There's a gift shop at the Fringe FM too, if you want to get stuff from there as well, right? So I'm going to have to start putting the monthly goals back up there, and then everything that we get in will be included. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It doesn't really matter if it's coming from donations, shirts, whatever, and then hopefully we'll hit it, and then we'll keep bumping on. So I just released a video of the third video in the series of the hermetic magic and mysteries video kind of thing. So I'm trying to brush the cobwebs off with that stuff, but eventually I'll get all the way down to where it's going to reach a stop. And then I'm going to make another series on the out-of-body stuff. I get more questions about the out-of-body stuff than the magic stuff. I think more people are interested in that. Another thing, too, is Genevieve, like, set off some crazy dreams last night. What's up, Marla? What's up, Lisa? Some crazy, like, I think it was just thinking about, like, what she was talking about, because I had some super crazy hypnagogic stuff happen to me, man. Thanks. The intro's dope. I'm working on something to make it better, but I got who was it? Somebody. I don't want to call people out. Who was it? But somebody online said that it made them anxious. They're like, your intro is so long and it makes me anxious. And I'm like, oh, that's a first, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it'll wake you up. But, I'm working on a new video and a new intro for that too. I built that off of a free software, like, what is it called? OpenShot or whatever. That's what I used to make that video. And I used the templates that were on there and some stuff that I downloaded before. And the song, Steezy Stevie mixed that in with Chronox. If you guys missed the Fringe Fest, that is such a project for me to get that video up. But when I do, you'll see all that. We had DJs, we had country singers show up for it. It was really cool. But I'm just going to blast it out to the public. But it is gigabytes of stuff that I'm fixing and working on. So, yes, I have a list of stuff to get done. But the good news is I don't have anything that's distracting me because I'm back here in the shack. God put me right back here in the shack to focus. So that's what I'm doing. Down the list I go. All right. What's up, Jess? Sorry I hadn't been online playing video games lately. I've been swamped with crazy stuff. Yeah, so before we get back into the material, because we can't just leave it where we left it yesterday. The dream that I had last night was crazy. It was really freaking crazy. So I experienced sleep paralysis, not on purpose. I usually do it on purpose, but this time it wasn't on purpose. I had like a half false awakening, and I could hear 4 voices. And I swear, so my bed is right there. Okay. This is the domain that I live in the woods, in a shack, just like the picture shows. And it sounded like there were 4 people standing next to my bed. That doesn't mean they were actually next to my bed physically. They could have been. And they were carrying on a conversation about worms. They were giggling. I don't even think they said anything directly towards me or to me, right? Like, I think I was just somewhere observing it or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, been busy. Busy. All right, last announcement I want to make. You guys need to watch. This is why, one of the reasons why I'm putting out the info that I know, because Joe Rogan's back on YouTube, and I've noticed that YouTube is really letting us say what we want to say. For some reason, I mean, Tinfoil Hat's back on there, which is awesome. A lot of people are back on YouTube, and I think YouTube's, what it's telling me is that there's a fight for freedom of speech it kind of goes back and forth. But anyways, so I finished watching the Cat Williams show with YouTube. And with YouTube and Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is the top of the food chain at putting out information or talking about what's going on in the world, whatever, when it comes to podcasts. Everybody knows that. And it amazed me how much Cat Williams was like, he would say things like, well, I know this and I know that. And then Joe Rogan would ask him a direct question. They were so freaking stoned, though. I don't blame them. You know, they were really high. But when Joe would ask him a direct question, he would say some kind of crazy existential thing, you know, and he kept looking around, and it was almost like, and I love Cat Williams to death. The guy's funny as hell, but I think that was a hard situation for him because they went right into the deep stuff, and Cat started talking about some of the things that he had probably watched or listened to, maybe even read. And then when Joe asked him a direct question, he wouldn't really know the answers to it, would he? Like he couldn't really give a specific answer. So they talked about magic, hermetics. They talked about the emerald tablets of both the emerald tablets of Thoth and the emerald tablet of Hermes. And I can't believe this hasn't still been clarified out there. Yeah, Cat was nervous, right? Like it seemed like he was intimidated. Like he wasn't really in his element, or maybe perhaps, because this has happened to me when I was out with Grimerica, perhaps he got so stoned he couldn't think straight, you know. I mean, one of the first speaking events I presented at in my life, I was so stoned. That was the thing I literally said. I said, I'm so high. I'm just so freaking stoned. I can't do this, you know. So some things I want to clear up that I think there should be some videos on this. So the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus goes way back. The one that has Isaac Newton and all these people that redid just like that original tablet goes way, way back. And then there is the emerald tablets of Thoth, which is another channeled text. So when people get into an argument, they're like, well, the emerald tablets of Thoth aren't real, or the emerald tablet of Hermes is the legit one. Okay, well, the emerald tablet of Hermes is the oldest hermetic tablet. It's like kind of like the 10 Commandments on a stone of hermetic philosophy, okay? And then the emerald tablets of Thoth, it was written by Dorial, which was also channeled, but that was like in the 1930s or something like that. So I'm not saying to discount one or the other at all. What I'm saying is like you have to study and vet the information and know where the stuff comes from and then talk about it. And then we can figure it out together. But because what happened on the show is, they got into UFOs and Bob Lazar, which is really cool. But what happened on the show is Kat spoke up about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And then Joe went online and had his buddy look up the Emerald Tablets, and the Emerald Tablet of Hermes came up. So it interested Joe, and he obviously didn't know much about it. But it was still really cool to see mainstream internet radio, I guess you could say, talking about these things we've been talking about for years, which really gives me hope, really does. He brought up the Dogon. Yeah, he did. It was really cool. I had a friend of mine reach out and was like, you got to watch it. You'll like it. So that's what I was watching before I fell asleep, for all these freaking things started laughing at me before I crashed out. Okay. All right, let's get back into this thing. Last night we left off and Genevieve called in, which was great because we were talking about this stuff. We're reading the Orion Book by Wes Penre, who Wes Penre, I think, is trying to act like a modern day. I don't want to say he's trying to act, but he put out a paper, like 2,000 pages or something, about the origins of the earth and creation and all this stuff. And a lot of it has Gnosticism in it. It's got stuff about the Matrix, the Zachariah Stitchin information that's kind of, he's saying, isn't exactly the way it's supposed to be. So this is what we're into. Last night when we left off, he was talking about the astral realm. He had just got into talking about the astral realm. And then Genevieve called, right? Which is good. I wish more of you would call. And I want to say a big shout out to Star Seed Awakening for giving me a shout out on his new YouTube channel. Thanks, man. So he gets into the astral realm. He says, whether we are in the Matrix or in Orion, we create in our minds and manifest it in what we perceive as outside our minds, resulting in a shared fantasy that we share with potentially all souls in the universe. That's kind of true. You remember when we were a kid, we used to sing that song? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. We're just living in God's dream. That's what they should have just said. But they had to sing a lot of nursery rhymes. You ever look into the history of those things, too? It's kind of interesting. Life is but a dream. So does this mean that we humans created all these realms in the astral, and that astral travelers such as Robert Monroe experienced, that he experienced all the stuff we created? And he says, which I agree with him, I would suggest it's a mixed bag. And some of it, I believe, is created genuinely by human minds, while the more solid realms, such as the different heavens or astral dimensions and densities, are created with overlord technology. With our help, and projected into the astral realm, similar to the old school projectors that produced animated images on a white screen. They can reach and read our minds individually and collectively via the astral, and this is most likely how they can take our beliefs and project them in the astral. So thus a person who believes in Jesus may see Jesus at the end of a tunnel, etc., and this is how they can project dead relatives at your deathbed. I've never seen Jesus in any of this stuff. I had a dream about Jesus once. That was it. But I've never seen Jesus like traveling around, but I had a dream about him once. Like, hey, what's up, Pepe? Good to see you. Where he just came through the wall, and he was like, I was at my grandmother's house. This was like right after 2-3 years of panic disorder. So I had a crazy dream, and he came through the wall and wanted to give me a big hug. That's the only time I've ever seen him in any kind of realm. Why doesn't it light up your handle when I type that? I don't know. I'm technologically disinclined to some of this stuff. So, Ascension within the Matrix. So he says this is an important subsection because it affects most of us who are in the New Age movement and on a spiritual path. Many people in these communities look forward to ascending to the fifth dimension, and this has been promoted for many decades now, and to some degree I would suggest it comes from Madame Blavatsky's Theosophy in the 19th century, where she discussed the ascended masters. We will talk more about those in a moment. Helena Blavatsky is said to be the mother of the New Age movement. Remember, we discussed Inky's deal with Orion, that we must be able to evolve in this construct, graduate, and then be set free to go home to Orion. Now, when the contract is void, he may no longer care about this. He has created his own ascension program within the Matrix, all the way up to the seventh heaven. Or he puts in parentheses, dimension density, which is portrayed in the Nag Hammadi Gnostic texts. The question is, what will happen when a soul enters the seventh heaven, which is Inky's version of heaven, with a capital H, the place of God? Will the soul be stuck in an illusion of heaven forever in a day? Or will we graduate thereafter and leave the Matrix? I don't have the answer to that. But taking into consideration that Inky is a trickster god, also keep in mind that the astral in which the ascension process takes place is the realm of the minds. It is a pretty crazy place. This means that when we ascend, we literally go inside our minds, not outside. Ponder that. If Inky rewards us by sending us to another dimension between lives and within the astral, doesn't that mean he will get even more control over our minds? It's always straight to that, right? There's another person controlling another thing. There's always another perpetrator, always. If we agree to ascend deeper into Inky's construct via your mind, it means he owns a little more of it. There is an interesting testimony from Robert Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Institute, which to a large degree experiments in out-of-body experiences, or OBEs. Monroe himself dedicated decades of his life to this and has written books about his experiences. He also claims to have mapped the astral to some degree, with the emphasis on some degree. And he has, to some degree. That's true. So during his OBEs, he often encountered different soul minds in the astral who were more than willing to show him around. Monroe told us there are numerous realms in the astral. It's almost like there is one realm for each religion, belief, or human need. He had the privilege to visit some of them. On one occasion, he was shown heaven. He said in a lecture from the 1980s how wonderful it was. He was apparently literally sitting on a cloud while wonderful angelic music was constantly playing. It was bliss, and he never wanted to leave. However, after only so long, he was pulled away from there by a spirit guide or spirit guides and returned to his body. It's like that movie Scrooge. They should make a Scrooge version of this, you know. Y'all seen that with Bill Murray? He was very depressed to be back on Earth and wanted to return. I know how that feels, like when you wake up from a good sleep and you're like, ugh. It took a while before he was allowed to go there again, but he went there a second time. This bliss came over him once more, and he was splurging in the ecstatic experience. And however, after a while, he realized it was the same music loop playing over and over. Yeah, I talked to you guys about this, like a CD that was on set on repeat. It was then he realized it was all fake. And on top of that, it also became very boring for a while, so he left and never wanted to return there again. Okay. I'm going to have to check this out tonight and let you guys know later. I don't think Robert Monroe said that was fake. I don't think he did. He did say he was bored because he just kept making this crazy, like, energetic movement that was happening over and over again with the music. I remember him saying that. So I hope for the sake of people who believe Ascension within the Matrix is the way to go. Don't end up in that heaven. To me, it sounds like hell. Monroe missed out on the part where the angelic beings sing Holy, Holy, Glory to Almighty God 24/7, but such a realm does exist. The ascension to the fifth dimension was heavily promoted during the hippie movement in the 1960s. Can anybody verify that? Because I wasn't born until the 80s. So, and as I have come to understand through decades of research, there are no coincidences. It's all staged, just like the entire hippie movement and the New Age community. There was even a music group called The Fifth Dimension singing The Age of Aquarius, and other music groups jumped on that bandwagon, not by coincidence. So the Age of Aquarius will be the Age of Ea, who is Inky or Uriel. Ea means Lord of Water or the Water Carrier. And the fifth dimension is a promotion of his ascension program. I would strongly argue that we do not want to ascend through Inky's ladder. It's not ascension, it's descension. Inky is not interested in having humankind figuring things out and becoming enlightened. That goes against his principles and would be a threat to him. See, this is my point, man. Like West or Dorial or whoever, we put out these papers, and then it says all this cool stuff that sounds super believable. And then if we got people like Cat Williams going on, yeah, I heard this and I heard that, and I don't know, man, you know. And then everybody gets on the internet and just... It's almost like the astral realm, just a bunch of information that hasn't been vetted, just all together. And then you got all the people trying to figure out what's going on. Like, somebody needs to like get this guy on a show and say, okay, how did you figure out all this information? Oh, an alien came and told me. Really? Where is he? You know, like, not saying you're wrong or you didn't have the experience, but I'd like to know. Okay. Anyways, that goes against his principles and will be a threat to him. I suggest that those in the spiritual community who ascend to the fourth or fifth dimension are those who are most manipulated in the spiritual and New Age communities. They might have their life review in the Between Lives area, or BLA, after death, and it will be established that they have conquered the cycles of karma and can now ascend. In other words, they get, he puts in quotations, rewarded because they have conformed. Those, on the other hand, who have seen through the Ascension program will be recycled again onto this planet in a new body, after having forgotten everything that they have learned. So all we leave behind when we die is whatever we have contributed with to the soul group in general, good and bad. And they, over generations to come, can benefit, there's that they word, they can benefit from us or take advantage of us. So you, the individual, die every time your body dies and goes through the Between Lives area. When you are born here again, you have your memories completely wiped and you create a new personality based on your reactions to the environment. Not very benevolent, in my opinion. I don't think it is either. Honestly, I'll agree with him on that. Like, being born was probably so traumatic that we forgot it. There's some people that say they remember being born, but I don't see how. Just don't see it. You remember coming out of the womb and freaking out and people cutting on you and jabbing you, like you remember all that stuff? So, what will happen to those who ascend to a higher dimension? It depends on whom we listen to. Much of the information about Ascension these days comes from channeled material, which is a can of worms in itself. The raw material, for instance, channeled by Carla Ruckert with Don Elkins as the person who asks questions to the entities, tell us there are positive and negative densities. The term density is the same as a dimension in the raw teachings. Well, you're asking us to believe that you talk to an alien. I don't see how that's different than you asking us to believe if someone just, it's kind of hypocritical, man. So in 2011, there was supposed to have been a harvest, the term for worthy souls to ascend to either the fourth density positive or the fourth density negative, depending on our personality. The fourth density is supposedly where we learn compassion, according to Ra, and then we graduate to the fifth density. Ra, when channeled by Ruckert, resided in the sixth density positive, and they had become a hive mind. They became a hive mind through their ascension process. They claimed to originate on Venus a very long time ago, before the human soul group was born, from what it sounds. They are now waiting to ascend to the seventh density, which is the highest. They're not sure what is waiting for them there, or what will happen after they graduate from density 7, but they think they will become a sun or a star. And according to them, ascension happens in octaves. So the 8th density is the first density in a new octave of 7 densities, or heavens. And this is their belief, but they also say they're not sure. Well, that's what a belief most people believe. Most people, if they're honest with you about their beliefs, like, they have to have faith, but they're not entirely sure because they don't know all the way. It's a part of the process, man. So regardless of how much this is correct when it comes to Inky's Ascension program, let's think about it for a moment. Let's say certain humans ascend to the 4th density, where we allegedly learn compassion. Well, what does that mean? So Inky runs this realm, and as a narcissist and a psychopath, he knows not what compassion is. He can't feel it himself. So then, if we think a little deeper and look around us in the world, which is currently Inky's planet, or so he claims, we see that almost everything here is inverted. Doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, media inverts news, and the list continues. I mean, this is a really negative look on things. I'm not trying to be like, dude, don't be negative. Like not that guy, but let's be reasonable here, okay? There are some doctors that help people's health. I know they've helped mine. There are lawyers that have been just. There are good people in the media. Of course, some of them got killed and some of them are on the internet. So there is good and bad in everything. It's freaking prison planet stuff, man. Prison planet. So we're trapped in opposites, inversions. Truth become lies and lies become truth, just like George Orwell wrote in his book in 1984. That's because nobody vets information, because we take your word for it. That's why. So keeping this in mind, why should we believe we will learn compassion in the fourth density? Isn't it more likely that we learn an inversion of compassion and get even more indoctrinated, manipulated, and lied to? Following this train of thoughts, we would then graduate when we have conformed to the manipulation. If we protest and say, this is not compassion, then perhaps we will be told that it's because we still have a lot to learn about compassion and haven't seen the bigger picture. So thus the protesters must spend extra time in the fourth density until they learn what compassion means in Inky's universe. Or perhaps they are kicked out and get recycled again. I feel like these are projections, man. Like, look, I've had people do really ratty crap to me and then do it in the name of love. Or they say that I don't have enough compassion for the things like I understand how narcissists and psychopaths make excuses for the bad things they do. But apparently, I mean, if it happens to you so much in this life and you never heal from it, then you're in a prison planet. You're a slave. So as we're going to discuss in one of the last chapters, leaving this matrix through the Earth grid is a relatively easy task that all humans can accomplish when they put their minds to it. So then ask yourself, why have so-called ascended masters not left the matrix yet if they're so enlightened? Why are they still preaching matrix teachings and doctrines? Could it be, as I already suggested, because the more we ascend within Inky's construct, the more indoctrinated we become and the dumber we get? Something to think about. God, the great architect, does not want humans to leave his construct. He wants to keep as many of us here as possible. Therefore, why would he want to truly ascend? I'm about to go on a rant. I'm about to do a Roop rant, man. What if you're wrong, dude? What if it's not about leaving or staying or any of that shit? What if consciousness actually wanted to experience things conceptually and it created an entire universe so that it could have life? And so that, like the Dogon talk about, the spiritual world and the human worlds work together in constant flux, right? So that we can experience this everlasting flow of consciousness and experience. Why do people look? Here's my point. If people were actually happy, I said this to Genevieve last night. You can disagree with me or not, but if people took their happiness in their own hands and they were actually happy, do you think there would be all this talk about prison planets? I'm not burying my head in sand saying there's not a lot of bad stuff. There's bad stuff everywhere. But what do? Like, if you go out to the playground and some kid starts punching you in the face, what do? You just off yourself? It's terrible. Or you cut yourself and it starts bleeding. You're just like, I'm just going to bleed out and get out of this prison. It doesn't make sense. It's a part of everything. I'm going to laugh. Not really. I don't want to think this, but when we get to the spirit world and like these bad energies and like good energies are still there, like he's kind of mocking people because they're going to heaven or they don't, whether it's through the mysteries or whether it's through religion. And yet he's trying to escape all of this simply because it doesn't make sense. This is just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. But simply just because it doesn't make sense, and he's experienced so much bad in the world, his focus is on that. Like, the idea is to change the place. That's what we're doing. I mean, if we're all like ascending in consciousness, and let's say we're 5 years old when it comes to being, I don't know, evolved humans, whatever you want to call it, you can't tell a 5-year-old like all this stuff. You got to let stuff grow. I like life. I don't know about you, but I like life. And I think it's a great thing. But I like spiritual stuff too. I like getting out of body, so I like both of it. I don't feel like I'm in a prison. And it just depends on the state, though, right? So, not all humans who stop reincarnating go to the fourth dimension or the fifth. Some become spirit guides, watching over living humans they have been assigned to. Others become teachers. They choose a person on Earth, usually someone who has their chakras wide open, and a few, if any boundaries and channeled through them. So there are different paths the human soul can take in the astral, but I am shooting out a warning to those who plan on ascending to a higher dimension. It's fake, and it will lead you nowhere at best and descend you at worst. The latter is much more probable. Instead, I want to emphasize there is only one way out of the matrix I know of, and that is through the grid. It sounds like Tron, don't it? In there is our destiny. I hear the Tron music playing in my head right now. So what exactly is the seven heavens, also called dimensions or densities, depending on who you asked? To get an answer, we again need to address the ancient texts such as the Vedas and the Nag Hammadi Gnostic Library, to name two. And so he has a picture of here of like seven heavens, or the seven ancient planets: Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. They didn't know the moon wasn't a planet back then, though. So the heaven dimensions are actually 12 heavens altogether, 7 above us leading to the ultimate matrix heaven, and 5 below us leading to the lowest depths of hell. According to the Gnostics, an archon overlord guards each heaven, questioning the soul to see if we are ready to ascend to his heaven. If we pass, he lets us in. And these heavens respectively are the celestial bodies we see in the solar system, including the sun and the moon. Therefore, the Ra collective we just discussed should currently be on Jupiter, the 6th heaven density, according to the system. The 7th heaven is Saturn, which is the highest you can reach. I'm not going to discuss the hell dimensions or heavens in this book, but one way to learn more about them is to study the West Penre papers, the 5th level of learning, which is about the Vedic text. Ugh. I got too much of a philosophic nature, right, to like, when people are like, one way to know the truth is read my stuff, because I know everything. I know the truth. I know it all. I mean, even if I was approached by an alien and he told me all this stuff, like, I would still question it. Wouldn't you? So just like Earth, all the heavens are holographic projections. More about projections and simulations later. They're not real. It's trickery. But to the soul mind, they feel very real. Thus, if we would be able to take a spaceship and land on Jupiter, for example, in our 3D bodies, we would find no life there. Jupiter, the 6th heaven, is protected from another density that you can only perceive without your physical body. It's like a construct or a matrix of its own, with its own narrative. But some of this stuff, like, could possibly be true. See, this is what I think. This is just what I think. I think people come into a state of awareness like this guy, and then they try to come to a conclusion about it. You know, because they're intelligent. They use their, let's just say they use their right brain intelligence to come to a conclusion about it. And then tell us that this is the answer to things. So what he's telling us is he knows more than all of the researchers, all of the books that we've ever read. I'm not saying he don't, okay? Like, he knows more than all of us, all the archaeologists, all of everything we've studied. He's got the answers to all of it. If it were me, I would have done a whole chapter and been like, not sure if this is real, but here's my theory. And I talked to an alien and yeah. So when we die, we leave the physical world. He's going to talk about the between lives and the recycling center. So when we die, we leave the physical world and are again inside our minds as souls. From there, we experience the lower astral realm, which is the upper layer of the mind, just beneath the surface of what we perceive as reality in our bodies. I previously mentioned that spirit or ether is all around us all the time. And likewise, it's also inside us all the time. But we humans, because of manipulation and amnesia, are disconnected from it to a larger or lesser degree, depending on our personal stage of awakening. Even people who are not awake can sometimes get flash connections with spirit and get some profound insights outside the five senses. The overlords know we are usually completely lost when we enter the astral after body death, and from taking control over our collective minds by having us connected to the grid and keeping us in ignorance, they can easily manipulate us after death. So, how do we know there is life after death in the first place? There's overwhelming evidence for that. It can hardly be denied, however. Let's concentrate on the near-death experience so many people have had. There are, for example, many who have died on the operating table, left their bodies, and had profound experiences often quite similar to each other. Even neuroscientists and other ones who did not believe in an afterlife have experienced this and came back to life, now convinced. So if the reader wants to investigate this further, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of testimonies online. Many people who have died for a minute or two and then come back to life have extraordinary stories to tell. For example, a dark spinning tunnel with a bright light at the end toward which they feel drawn. The soul is rapidly traveling through the tunnel without having any control once they are inside. Then, at the end of the tunnel, there's usually a light being, most commonly in the shape of someone that means or has meant a lot to the soul, such as dead relatives or Jesus or God or Allah, or if the deceased is of a jungle tribe, it's perhaps one of their gods. Whatever tickles the soul's fancy shows up at the end of the tunnel, and at the soul feels an enormous flow of love, stronger than they have ever encountered before, and it's irresistible. But then they are stopped. This light being tells them it's not their time yet, and they need to return to Earth. Then the soul is shot back into the body in the operation room, and when they wake up, they are often both exhilarated and depressed because they don't want to return to Earth after that experience. I didn't have to die, dude. I've been shoved in my body by like shadowy things, but I'm not going to write a book and tell people we're being enslaved by shadow people. So unfortunately, these people don't know that things aren't what they seem to be. And the light being at the end of the tunnel is a false image created by the controllers of the afterlife, whom I call BLA workers. BLA workers. Sounds like a union, right? They are projections from the Khan kings and the Syrian alliance, using advanced technology to lure the soul in, so the soul won't escape the matrix. This might sound cynical, but unfortunately, or fortunately I should say, as it has been revealed, this is where my research has led me, and it's detailed in the papers. Those who had near-death experiences did not actually die, but were all the time connected to the body with the so-called silver cord. I have yet to see this cord. An energy cord that keeps the soul connected to the body and breaks at true body death, like we disconnect the umbilical cord at birth. They never got to experience the next step in the process of the afterlife. Some of it has been experienced in regression therapy, and the late Dr. Michael Newton specialized in regression therapy that addressed the afterlife and the reincarnation process. I'll give this guy this, though. He's studied and read a lot of the same stuff we have, right? So during his studies, he experimented on over 7,000 clients. They all had similar stories to tell, unrelated to each other, conveying their experiences about the afterlife, previous incarnations, and reincarnations. This is probably the deepest study ever made on the subject, and the results can be found in Dr. Newton's books all over the internet and available on Amazon. Although these studies are very interesting, one should note it was recognized that the person's spirit guide or spirit guide souls were almost always present in the room when the client told their stories. The guides were hovering around, and it appeared to me as a reader that they were there to make sure certain parts of the afterlife process were not being revealed. They often intervened in the regression sessions as if they were anxious about what was being said. He's right about that. Common from these regression sessions was the life review. Usually after the deceased had passed through the tunnel of light, they met with someone who gave them a life review. This means every second of their life was passing by in review. And he puts in parentheses, with technology. From birth to death, it was reviewed, and the deceased had to reevaluate their lives, both the good and the bad things they had accomplished. Such reviews have also been reported by people who had NDEs. They were often validated for the positive things they had accomplished for themselves and others, but they also had fingers pointed at them for the things they had done which was considered immoral, unethical, or criminal. These incidences were highlighted, and the soul was greatly encouraged to go back to Earth in another life form to get rid of the karma related to their bad actions. And often they were told they will experience the other side of the coin just to learn. That's kind of how it works. But, I mean, you can experience karma whether you're alive or dead. It's just cause and effect in the metaphysical world. So this means if you killed somebody, you would be killed in the next life, just to know how it feels. The soul, often full of shame and guilt, agreed to do this, and they would return to a new body and be recycled. I see his point, though, right? Like, couldn't you just say, come on, man, I was human. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me. You left me. And this is where I see his point, which is a little, I know it's weird for me to agree with stuff and not agree with other things, but that's how stuff works once you get past polarity. But that's what I'd say. They'd be like, so why did you call that person a whatever? It really hurt them. And when you go back, you're going to be born into a family where all they do is call you names. There would be a part of me that's like, well, you didn't give me an instruction manual. The parents I had were socially engineered and full of crap, and I didn't figure that out until after I got older, and I mean way older. After I went through the psychological process of detaching myself from their shitty beliefs, right? I'm not saying all parents have crappy beliefs, but come on. Parents mess up their kids. That's what they do. But not in all cases. If you're a parent, don't freak out by me saying that, especially if you're a good parent. But when you're a kid, if you can just remember what it's like being a kid, you looked at your parents like they roped the moon. Like, so you were kind of yearning for this unconditional love for them. And so they showed you what love was all about and how conditional it was and what real masculinity is and what real femininity is, no matter how dysfunctional it was. And then you unconsciously map those things out. You didn't have to die to do it. You just unconsciously mapped those situations out as you got older with your friends and the people you dated and all this other stuff until you get old enough where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Am I a good person or a bad person? Who gets to decide that? It's all right here. So I get what he's saying. I'd have been like, send me back, give me an instruction manual this time, please. Others who might have had a very tough life did not feel ready to reincarnate. For them, there were rest areas where they could go until they were ready to go back to Earth. There, they could sometimes meet with deceased friends and relatives because even though many of them had already reincarnated, the consensus was that the soul usually leaves about 25% of their soul energy in the astral when they reincarnate for some reason. It appears the overlords covertly hold this part of the soul as hostage, making it more likely to be able to manipulate the soul next time their body dies, or maybe while they are alive on Earth. There's much more to read in Dr. Newton's books, but what I just conveyed has to do with what I want to tell you next. Please be emotionally prepared before you read this because it's not nice. It needs to be said, and unfortunately this matrix is not a very friendly place. And we're going to take a break right there. No. I'll read it. So, what Dr. Newton's clients did not tell their therapist, Dr. Newton himself that is, was that what happened during their recycling process. Perhaps this was the spirit guides were there to prevent from being discussed. Also, there's another side of the life review that was not discussed either. So let's start with the latter. That is about karma. But ironically, we're not only working with our own karma. So he's got this next chapter called The Karma Nonsense. It's daunting, isn't it? To begin with, karma as we know it is an invention by the overlords. Karma, in its real sense, is synonymous with the law of cause and effect. You cause something to happen and you get an effect back from it for different reasons. The effect might be instant because creation in the solid matrix is slow sometimes. Other times, when you commit a crime, for example, you may not be caught until many years afterwards, and if you're lucky, you won't get caught at all. But still, you will experience the negative effects in life because of the crime. You might need to stay in hiding and on the run for the rest of your life. Always watching behind your back. It works the same way in reverse. If you do something good for yourself or others, you may not get a response until much later, but there will be a response in one form or another. The overlords have distorted the law of cause and effect by adding nonsensical ingredients to it. Instead of letting the universe or energy flow automatically put cause and effect in motion, they interfere with the process in a covert way and suggest we should go back to Earth and take care of our karma. This is none of their business because the so-called karma takes care of itself over time. I 100% agree with him on that one. I actually do. Because everybody's like, karma, karma, karma. It's like everything's input and output. If you do shitty things, you're going to get shit back. Just like if you eat crap, your body looks like crap. If you do crappy things to people, you're going to get crap back. And it works in the metaphysical too. You don't have to fix it. You just stop. You learn the lesson and stop doing it. It's that simple. They don't need to tell us what to do and what not to do. They are literally not God, and they have no authority over us except the authority we give them. They have at least two ulterior motives for having us go back and take care of our karma. The first is they don't want us to wake up too soon, and by going back to take care of karma, we won't even remember once we're in a new body. We won't progress. If we at least remembered our past lives so we knew what to take care of, it certainly would help. But the overlords make us fumble in the dark, having forgotten everything, starting from point zero every lifetime. Not very helpful. That is bad, even if that would be all, but it's not. The sinister treatment of the deceased continues, and after we leave our dead body, the memories of the life we just left fades after a while. And normally, by the time we have our life review, we have forgotten most of it. It has to do with the subtle light bodies we shed in the astral, but I will not go into that here. This memory loss is also intentional because now the between live workers who control the life review can add and subtract to real incidences as they may. And some of the incidents the soul must confront may perhaps have occurred, and other things maybe they didn't. So therefore, they point out weaknesses in our character that's not ours, but theirs. Yes, the overlord's karma will be transferred on to us, so in an even greater sense, they give us their mind. This is exactly what narcissists here on Earth do. God, he makes a good point there. They do crappy things and then point their finger at you. And then they say they did it in the name of love. They protect their own shortcomings and they project their own shortcomings into their partner. Or, hold on. They project their own shortcomings onto their partner or some other target, telling them their partners are the ones with the shortcomings, not the narcissist. The target, after a while, often starts believing it. It's trauma-based programming. So the deceased, having a life review, thinks they're the ones who did these bad things that were done by the overlords. And then the overlords can then cast out their unwanted shame and guilt and put it on us, so they can feel relieved and continue with their crimes. Then imagine us having amnesia, walking around carrying subconscious guilt and shame for something we don't remember and never did. In addition, we have our own human narcissist to deal with throughout our lives. I knew it, man. I would like to listen to this guy tell me his narcissistic stories, right? And then just be like, come on, dude. Tell me you're not projecting your stuff into your story a little bit. Come on. You could tell me. So these narcissists that we deal with on Earth, who also give us their karma to feel shameful and guilty about, it's a wonder we can even feed ourselves. So now the soul has had their life review and full of shame and guilt. She's ready to go back with the tail between her legs and take care of all these shortcomings without even remembering them. Then it's time to get recycled. How do you guys feel about that? Hey, buddy, why are you scared of doing some hard work on for yourself and not just wanting the answers up front? Exactly, man. What if, okay, the reason why, I'm just saying, just putting this out there, because like when you study alchemy, you kind of see this. So what if the reason why you're reincarnating over and over again is because then it's ironic that you're talking about narcissism here, because you're identifying with the self or the individual or the ego, which at some point has to go back into the collective unconscious. So do you want to disappear into nothingness and dust and go back into consciousness and be bored for eternity? Or do you want to grow your soul through the soul of your body, and you have to be in a state of amnesia to do that until you become into a certain state of consciousness? What if there's a whole other process going on that you don't understand? And because you don't know how to heal from your pain here, and that's okay, it's healing's hard, pain sucks, and especially when we don't know how to do it at all. But I just think there's so much irony here in this book. It's all like narcissist. The story of Narcissus itself, where the word comes from, is actually telling us the story of how we fall in love with the image of ourselves. That's it. That's the ego. That's the thing that's inside of us all that makes us individual. So every time somebody does anything that they want to do doesn't mean that they're a narcissist, even though there are people that have no compassion, things like that he's talking about, and that's all they do is sneaky, crappy, manipulative stuff for themselves. But that's built-in human nature that's supposed to be overcome. It's not something that, well, you're a narcissist and this God's a narcissist, then there's another overlord, and then that overlord's tricking us, and then when we get out of the matrix, there's another overlord tricking us, and why can't I do what I want to do? And it sounds like I get it, man. I do. I totally freaking get it. Makes me want to punch a wall, doesn't it? When somebody breaks your heart over and over and over and over again, but you never took wrestling, did you? You got to get back up, man. You got to fight or tap out. Yeah, psychotherapy does help, you know. Do you think narcissism is not a controllable disorder? I don't know. I might agree with you there. I've seen some people that, I don't know, like, there is probably no hope for them. Like, they would stomp on a bunch of kids around them because they're so caught up in their story, you know. But we're all in different paths, man. I get where this dude's coming from. I do. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he's talking about that he's done his research is real. There's some things that I agree with, but I don't know, just anybody that tells me that they know the truth of everything, all things, and or whatever, and they just pound that in. And I wrote this big thing about how I know the truth of everything. When that truth doesn't line up with anybody's truth, there's always someone else telling a different story. You're going to have to let us figure it out together, you know? There's a little bit of narcissism going on in these books, I would think. In kind of a way, right? I don't know. I don't want to judge the guy, man. He's done a lot of work and research. I guess I could just feel a lot of anger. Like, would you go out to a party with Wes Penre? Like, would you have fun if you went to the lake and, like, if you went to a barbecue, or if you just wanted to enjoy life? Could you take a moment just to enjoy life? Anyways, we got to take the commercial break. We'll be right back. Right back.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Home Psychoanalysis Kit. Why go crazy paying a real psychiatrist $100 an hour and more when you can do a reasonably accurate job by yourself in the comfort of your own living room or attic? That's Ed's Home Psychoanalysis Kit. Couch and ink blobs not included.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Musicians experience a lot of frustration with music marketing and promotion. They have no idea how to get their music heard, and they're spending hours sending emails, making phone calls, and hitting up their friends to promote them. With our industry-powered digital marketing platform, we can set up your media plan in minutes. Our team will automatically distribute your music across all the best channels, so you can focus on actually making the music. Submit your music today on our website at mymusicpromoter.com. That's mymusicpromoter.com.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Recaffeinated Coffee, the first decaffeinated coffee to have real caffeine added back in. So if you're looking for the weak aroma and limp taste of regular decaffeinated coffee, but still want the unhealthy side effects of real caffeine, gulp down a few gallons of Ed's Recaffeinated Coffee today.
Listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
I am not trying to depress you guys with this stuff, man, but this is getting daunting, man. So keep in mind as we go through this book, the whole reason why we're going through this book is because someone got diagnosed with ALS who's is in a state that could actually complain if he wanted to, but he doesn't complain. He messages us, tells us that he loves the show, and has no need to support anything that we're doing here, and still did, even after I begged him not to. And then he read this book as he's facing his own death. This is a problem, don't you see? Like, if you're going to put a book out and tell people what ultimate reality is, you need to take some responsibility for it, right? Because the whole reason, and I'll get back to this thing, it's like the whole reason why people are studying the mysteries to begin with is because they're in a state of fear or suffering or whatever. They fear the void or the unknown. So with that being said, I really hope with all my heart, Wes, as we read your text, because I know you won't come on the show. I would love you to come on the show because I think you're an intelligent dude, but you realize there are people that are taking your word for this. So if you get on the show, which I can only see this happening, coming on the show and talking about, all this narcissistic abuse that you've dealt with in your life and how the overlords are narcissistically abusing you and you're in a prison planet and all this other stuff and we're in a matrix, all this other stuff, you need to be aware that there are people that are reading these things that it matters to. Right, because they don't know the answers. So it would be pretty narcissistic if you were lying to come on the show, knowing that someone's dying and still saying, this is the truth. I know it's the truth. Wouldn't it? I'm just saying. Not saying you didn't see it in a dream or anything like that, but just because people struggle with their ego at different levels, which is what the whole mythology of narcissism is about, it's part of the process. I think you're just upset and afraid like the rest of us. So this is just my opinion, even though you're super intelligent, that you're a part of the process. What if you actually let go of all that and it was like, you know what? I'm one with it. He might later in his book too, but so I'm just ranting here with you. I don't read ahead. So what if you just let go and say, you know what? I'm not that important. Really. It's a privilege. It's awesome to be alive, to experience individuality, to experience all the sides of life conceptually and through life and experience and love and things like that. The pain comes with it, but it's great. I mean, when you get to your life review, right, if he's right and Newton's right and you get to a life review and they're like, nah, well, you got two choices. I can send you, and this is kind of funny. So I can send you into the collective, which I think you're going to go back to Orion and the Queen, or maybe just be a piece of spray dust inside of everything, or you can reincarnate and you're going to have to grow your soul to learn these lessons again? I'm thinking, okay, well, let me chill here for a while. Let me just go around and create my own worlds and do all this stuff. And let me experience, this is what I'd want to do, experience being one with everything. Just feel that connectedness for a second. And then if you don't mind, because then I would just be a part of God as a whole, right? If you don't mind, I'd like to go back because I really, really enjoy shrimp and grits and the ocean and love and fun and sex. And look, I know there's pain, okay, but this love thing was really great. So let me weigh this out. I'm going to forget who I am, but I'm still going to get to experience this stuff. I'm still going to have that awareness as an individual, right? What would Spirit do? What would God himself do if he's like, man, isn't it like I'm all things and everything up here? It'd be pretty damn boring, wouldn't it? I mean, any of you guys that have been in isolation and you know so much and you know everything, know how boring that is, don't you? I don't see the downside yet, but we'll keep going. Take the punches, man. Just take them. Swing back even, but damn it. So the recycling souls, how it works. Gruesome, he puts. I've been aware of the recycling process for many years, having gathered intel from different sources, and I feel confident that the following is close to what happens. Well, at least he's not saying he knows its ultimate reality. The recycling process is done with advanced technology. There are reasons to believe that the recycling center is on the moon, as many have suggested, but the technology is run from Mars. Of course, not on the physical surface, as this is not a physical process. Anyway, the tunnel of light appears to be a portal leading to the moon recycling center around 2012 or 2013. I first heard this story, and this is what is happening when a soul gets recycled. Conveyed to me by a source not from here. Zing! It was shocking, and although I had learned to trust this source, it was too sinister to wrap my head around. Imagine then how my jaw dropped when a highly trained remote viewing team, or technical intuition led by Brett Stewart, later remote viewed the reincarnation process, confirming what my own source had told me. Their remote viewing sessions resulted in a video called Moksha, which is now taken down from the internet. We got to find this sumbitch. Y'all look it up. Moksha. Find it. Give me a link. I'll look for it too after the show. So, which is taken down from the internet. Brett Stewart explained his decision by saying it was too traumatizing for people to know this information, so he took it down. I have another outlook on that, which is that people need to know regardless of whether it's traumatizing. When we hide things, we remain in a state of ignorance, and we tend to make the same mistakes over and over. Yeah, I agree. So what Stewart told us in the video was that the soul, compromising trillions of fires, was split into pieces before being recycled, creating even more trauma for the soul. Then the soul gets mixed with soul fire from other souls. So the memories from previous lives that might linger in a soul's memory after reincarnation might not even be that soul's memory, but somebody else's. Therefore, regression therapy into previous lives is useless. So what they encounter in the regression might be either someone else's soul memories, the ancestral memories on the mother or father side, because we store memories in our DNA, or it could be implanted memories, not to mention it could also be someone's imagination. That's exactly what I said when I went through that regression thing. They're like, oh man, do you remember like all this stuff you said? And I'm like, no, but that was your past life, right? I'm like, I'm not quite sure. I'm also not quite sure that my brain wasn't auto-suggesting some things. The only thing I know for sure when I went through a regression is that I just felt like I had to answer, and where those answers came from, I don't know. Although it seems we keep most of the same soul we were in previous lives, we now also carry memories from other people's lives thinking they're ours. So this entire splitting process creates additional amnesia and trauma even before we're reborn. And then they shoot us down in a body of the same bloodline as in previous lives. This means, for example, if you have a son, he grows up and you will eventually have a grandson or a granddaughter. So when you die, you'll be recycled into your grandsons or great-grandsons or that of your granddaughters. We're always born in a straight line from father, son, mother, daughter, etc., your own seed line. It must be within your immediate seed line. However, if your seed line ends, you will possibly be recycled into a new bloodline at random. Just so you guys know, there's a lot of spiritual teachings that teach that, right? So, what Robert Monroe experienced wasn't that at all. What he experienced was being like this conscious being they were on this like ship thing or whatever, and that they came across the earth and decided that they wanted to incarnate there. And the guy that was taking them through the place said, well, if you go there, you could get stuck, but it's still pretty cool. And they decided to go down, if I remember it right. So every time we reincarnate, we build a new personality. You're not the same as you were in your previous life, which can be easily explained. We are born with amnesia, so we start from scratch every time, and our personalities always form based on our environment, our caregivers, or what other people teach us and how they treat us. Of course, we carry some subconscious soul memories from previous incarnations and experiences, but they are extremely subtle and have little to do with the current life we're living. We have no choice but to develop our personality based on our environment and ancestral memories, and we develop it in a way that we consider is best for our survival, because in this construct of death, the basic need or urge to survive and to reduce anxiety is what happens. I'd still choose it. I'd be like, so is Corbin going to be my dad or my granddad? Because that's pretty cool. I'd still go back. Just saying. I like life. I don't know about you. Asterisms under Orion versus matrix control. So as we discussed so far, we can only see about 4% of the universe with limited access to mind and spirit. So what about all the galaxies, nebula, stars, and planets we can see in the cosmic waters? Are they all occupied by the overlords? The answer is no. It's a mix, and most of them are under Orion's control. It just so happens that the part of the universe we can see in the visible light spectrum is the part that radiates light within the tiny spectrum we can perceive. Some of these asterisms and star systems are under control of the overlords, and others are not. I don't know whom every asterism or star system belongs to, and which ones the overlords invaded over the eons, but I do know a few, and these are listed in the West Penre papers, the 5th level of learning. The conclusions being mainly based on what ancient texts tell us. The Vedas in particular are very generous when it comes to revealing what asterism belongs to whom. I will not write down the entire extensive domain list here because it would take up too much space, many pages if I list them all. Instead, I suggest reading the 2 following papers in the West Penre paper, 5th level of learning paper 10, Nakshatras, the gods and their star systems, and the 5th level of learning paper 11, star systems not mentioned in the Nakshatras, respectively. westpenry.com, I think, is the website. You can go check that out. So it's an interesting read for those who are passionate about particular stars or star systems and asterism and who is controlling them. Ooh. Let's go to the chat. The elite use bloodlines as manipulative eugenical model for supremacy. I wouldn't doubt it. I agree with Robert Monroe. We choose our parents. Yeah, I mean, Robert Monroe said that. He was like, they dial in a location before they even dial in the parents, you know. What? You know, I would be convinced if all of these, so there are things that line up between a lot of like famous conscious explorers. You got Monroe, Thomas Campbell, William Buellman, you got the magicians, you've got the theosophists, then you got the alien people, right? And there are, and then you got the Gnostics. So there are certain things that line up, but I've yet to find any parallels about any of them explaining certain levels of existence to the T that line up in parallel form, which is why we're all still confused, I think. Did we just get shut down? Did we go offline? We're still on the radio, right? Okay. So our place in the microcosmos. So after centuries of getting used to the misconceptions about the universe and what they have told us it's no wonder if the reader is confused about the macro and micro universes and that the greater universe is in the microcosmos. I think the easiest way to grasp this is to accept it, is to comprehend that what we experience in the Matrix is not the real universe, but a copy created inside the real universe. But we perceive it as more real than the real universe. To be even more precise, most of the Matrix is created within our human bodies. Ooh. Dude, did I ever tell you guys that story that when I was trying to get out of body, it was like the 4th or 5th time after I had that really, really cool out-of-body experience that when I came out, I got stuck from the waist down. Yeah, so when I got shoved back in, I had this notion to say, I command you to release me by life and light. Like I said it, but I didn't say it with my mouth. I think it was just something that my brain just puked out. But when it did puke it out, like the voice sounded like a very deep, resonated voice like James Earl Jones with a delay. And then like right after I said it, these little Rorschach figures came down and were like, they just really just shoved me back in my body. Maybe I was escaping the Matrix or something then, like he's talking about. So maybe you have asked yourself why we don't see each other's souls. The answer is that the soul is of the nanoverse, my term for the microcosmos. Our soul fire resides there, and if we were to regain our full perceptions, we would be able to see each other as souls. And if so, how does a soul look like? If we look on the internet and perhaps in some metaphysical books, we might be told the souls look like an orb, and from what I've learned, this could be considered correct. That's how the avatar would look like in its basic form. However, to say that this is a static form of the soul would be misleading. In the extraterrestrial and UFO communities, many people talk about reptilians and other shapeshifters. Yeah, well, shapeshifters also could be a term for bipolar narcissists too. I got a feeling in the next 4 paragraphs the term narcissism is about to come back up. This is not incorrect because shape-shifting is a real thing. If you by now have a picture in your mind about what a soul is, composed of trillions of tiny fires, damn it, I'm getting my Arkansas accent back. You understand that these tiny fires can be moved around and reorganized at will by the mind to create certain shape and form when we no longer are in our meat body. The soul can also project an image of herself into our 3D world for some time until the image fades. Some souls from other dimensions and densities can even project themselves so solidly here that you can shake hands with them. Thus, we have reptilians, Dracos, and other types of ETs people claim to have seen. Most of them are shapeshifters, often being souls without physical bodies who just mock themselves up in our 3D world. You know, when you listen to David Icke talk about it, though, like if you ever watch him talk about it, it just seems so real, right? I've studied all this information. I mean, on national TV. So do you believe in shape-shifting reptilians? Absolutely, I do. You know, the more confident somebody is, confidence is a great thing. I mean, it's a good thing, but it doesn't mean someone's speaking the truth, even if they're the most confident person you've ever heard in your entire life. They could be delusional. I've heard at least 15 people who are very confident who tell me they're targeted individuals and have implants in their bodies and stuff. And anyways, you know, not saying there's not targeted individuals and people have been implanted by aliens or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, if you really believed in this truth thing, you would let people really find out as deeply as they can without getting upset. So this isn't true, always true, however. The so-called grays, besides sometimes being shapeshifters too, are artificial intelligence, AI, cyborgs, working for the cons. These are the ones who have been captured here in flying saucers and other types of craft, and this was probably the kind of beings found in the Roswell crash in 1947. Other gray bodies are spacesuits carrying Khan kings and other overlord souls inside. They are using these bodies. He's got some pictures of elongated skulls here too, by the way. They're using these bodies because they've shown to be resilient to the harsh conditions in space or the cosmic waters. We hear that the grays originally come from the star system Zeta Reticuli, and there are indications that grays live or lived there, but they originate in the Lyra system and is an old star race. The Overlord scientists simply used the blueprint for this race and created bodies to travel through space in their hollowed-out asteroids and other craft within the solar system. Again, on rare occasions, a few of this kind might also have been captured by humans after UFO crashes and been reverse engineered, such as the huge black triangular UFOs people often claim to see, on which there is even a patent. Another thing we must take into consideration is the terrestrial beings living underground. Oh, damn it, here we go with the underground stuff. I do believe that we got a crashed UFO somewhere that we've been working on for a while. I think we do, for sure. I mean, the government's already talked about their program, but smoke screens of all kinds of different smoke screens. But the social psychological fact that they're even bringing it up means they're hiding something about it, right? Some of them survived Noah's flood and are remnants of some of the species Inky tinkered with at the end of the Atlantis era. Others are even older than Homo sapiens. Before Inky managed to create a species that he settled with, or Homo sapiens, he tried other alternatives. And one such species was the reptoids, who still exist and live underground in the honeycombed earth. Maybe Juan was right, dude. There's reptilians below the DMV. Another thing they talked about on the Joe Rogan show was the homunculus. You think Cat Williams had been watching Juan's podcast? I bet he did. I bet he saw something of it. So they're reptilian-like and are most likely the species people have seen coming out of caves. Other species are the Yetis, the Sasquatch, or the Bigfoot, whatever name we've given them. So when Inky decided for Homo sapiens, the precursors were forced to move underground. There were even surviving giants among them. Up to this day, these beings consider Earth being their domain because they were here first. There were giants in the Americas when Columbus, Cortez, and other conquerors, or conquistadors, and other Europeans entered the North and South American continents. Many skeletons and so-called elongated giant skulls have been found, particularly around Peru, and they were red-haired. They are on display for everyone to see in museums. In Paracas, Peru, the now famous archaeologist Brian Forrester has researched these skulls for more than a decade and often been on site. His research is astonishing. It really is. It's really cool stuff. He wanted to DNA test these skulls, which obviously were not regular Homo sapiens, but no authority wanted to fund the lab test. How could nobody want to fund that, man? I always wondered that. Like nobody? I know we're going to go straight to conspiracy, but there had to be like one rich person, like a Bruce Wayne or Elon Musk or something. Like, yeah, man, here's some money. Go figure it out. So Brian got donations from random people and eventually got 3 separate labs to do DNA testing. None of the labs knew that 2 other labs also did the same thing. They all came to the same conclusion. They were confused because these were not like regular Homo sapiens and could be tracked down to the borders of Turkey and Russia in ancient times. Brian Forrester had showed the lab results online. He'd also had other experts, including medical doctors, looking at the skulls and skeletons, and these experts had no idea what they were looking at. They were confused. Other findings of giant skeletons, tools, and artifacts have been found in North America as well. So why do we not hear more about this? Well, we used to. Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when it was announced in the mainstream newspapers, we did. However, there were those in high places who got a little nervous about exposing the remains of real 8-foot giants, and they did not want people to see them. This is where the Smithsonian Institute comes into the picture. If someone, an archaeologist or a regular citizen, finds something that the elite don't want you to know about, the Smithsonian Society takes over and hides it and then covers up the story. fact. I mean, I can't say it's a fact, but it's, come on. A few decades ago, a Swedish man claimed to have interviewed a reptilian being living underground. I think the interview might have been authentic, and the reptilian could have been a reptoid. He posted the entire interview on the internet, and he called them the Lacerda Files. The next question would be whether the species living underground are also Aryan-spirited souls. Because Inky tinkered with genetics, and he used these species as hosts for human souls at the time. I would suggest many of them might be having a similar level of ignorance about their origins as we humans. If there is any doubt that a soul can shapeshift, we can find evidence for it when we research the testimonies of those who have had OBEs and NDEs. They bear witness to leaving their physical body and then being in a much less dense copy of the same body in the astral, their double body, aka avatar. In other words, the soul, from occupying a human physical body, has shaped itself accordingly. And others who have had regression therapy and experienced the afterlife have told us that they can reshape their astral bodies or their avatar as they wish. Most souls apparently shape themselves to look like they did in their most recent life when they were in their prime, and perhaps in their 20s or early 30s. Yeah, that's true. Monroe ran into that too. It is also possible for us to reshape our physical bodies while we're still alive. The soul residing in the cells can reshape the body from within the correct knowledge. Yeah, I think Dispenza is starting to reveal all that. So we do this unconsciously to some degree. So examples are if a person has been depressed for a long time or if they suddenly become happy. In either case, we often hear from people in their environment say they look different. They tend to look older or younger, respectively. So our emotional state often reshapes our body temporarily. He's right about that. You don't really see that when you're around somebody all the time. But I know I did, right? Like, oh my God, the pyramids are recycling centers. So I was around somebody for a long time. And then, let's just say a family member had seen them years ago, came back about 3-4 years later, and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean what happened? They're like, man, they look like 10 years older. And I'm thinking, I don't see that. But then I started looking at pictures, and I was like, damn, they do. I think it was just because they were unhappy, depressed, or cigarettes and amphetamines, who knows? I think it's a lot of like unhappiness and depression, alcohol. All right, here we go. The Tiamat Earth size ratio. There's something else I assume some readers of the papers have pondered over. We have now discussed the difference between the microcosmos, Orion, and the macrocosm, the Matrix. But how can it be that everything on Tiamat was gigantic in comparison to the Earth? If Earth is supposedly an enlarged copy of what is in the microcosmos, where Tiamat existed. I was thinking that earlier when we were reading that. So this can be quite difficult to wrap our heads around, and it's also going to be difficult to explain in words. Let's picture it this way. Tiamat once existed between Mars and Jupiter, exploded into many pieces. In the nanoverse, everything on Tiamat had been gigantic, including we humans. It was a very large planet, and thus everything on it was proportionally large. The nuclear destruction of the planet happened very suddenly, and then much of the fauna and flora, including humans and other animals and beings, became petrified in a matter of seconds, sometimes in the middle of an action. So imagine petrification taking place all over Tiamat. Later, Enki took a chunk of this once so gigantic planet and placed it in orbit between today's Venus and Mars, and this became Earth. What was to become Earth also included a lot of petrified fauna and flora from this particular piece of the old Tiamat, and it's all still here today. Some of it is overgrown, but these dead beings, mushrooms, trees, rocks, and other things can easily be found and observed for those who have eyes to see. These petrifications are so gigantic that we confuse them for mountains and strange natural formations when they are not. Take, for example, the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Is this really a mountain, or is it a monstrous tree stump that at one point was a several-mile-high tree on Tiamat, now petrified? That thing does look pretty damn trippy. Take a close look. You can search for these things on the internet, and once you've seen it, it's impossible to have it unseen. It does look like a tree stump. Just saying. Have you guys seen it? I can't pull it up. I'd show it to you, but it won't let me do that for some reason. I've seen mountains in Utah and Wyoming while driving through there, which are obviously petrified humans and animals in form of entire mountains, titanic in size. Are you sure, man? I'd have to go look at those for myself. Because, like, I've looked at clouds and been like, it's Jesus, you know. There are even petrified pieces of mushroom forest in such places as the Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. Some of these do look like mushrooms, though. I'm not. Yeah. So the human mind is very adaptive, and if we're taught that we're looking at a mountain, we see a mountain. We don't realize it could be a petrification because that's not something most brains are wired to see, at least not until they have it pointed out. Then there is often a constant new insight. So Enki terraformed the portion of Tiamat he had moved that became Earth and used technology to enlarge the entire planet structure with technology. Then the petrifications kept their ratio and will often be perceived as gigantic even within the Earth matrix. In perspective to that, life on this new planet, Earth was made almost micro-sized compared to the Tiamat petrifications. Could explain some of the dinosaur crap too, right? So as with mostly everything in the matrix, it is inverted. The macrocosm is an illusion based on technology, and it's playing with our perceptions while we are in our physical bodies. The planetary body's real, but the rest is projected onto it by us, who are sent encoded messages to our brains that the brain then decodes and perceives as reality. It's just more trickery and illusions. When you leave your body and go to the astral, you're once again in the nanoverse, so the illusion is mainly projected through our bodies. Oh no, man. That one thing does look like a tree stump, though. I've cut many a tree down. Not proud to say it, but I have. Chopped wood, whatever. That looks like a damn stump. Have y'all seen what he's talking about? The Devil's Tower in Wyoming? All right. The cosmic water. We're getting down to the end. I hadn't had to put the specs on yet. I've been eating carrots. No, I got this thing blown up real big. So we debunked that idea that all beings evolve and live on planets, although some do. But star races are called star races for a reason. What about the astronauts who claim to have seen floating snakes and other unexpected beings in pure space? So do physical beings live in space? From what I've concluded through my research, the answer is yes. Although there are, in my opinion, no species that are developing amid space, there are non-physical beings, or soul minds, who live there and can shapeshift into anything, including floating snakes. It's creepy. And regarding the astronaut, was he in space or still within the atmosphere? Robert Morningsky in his later research explains that there are strange living beings residing in the upper atmosphere, and these beings could be what the astronaut saw if he was telling the truth. Why's it got to be snakes, man? Anything but that. Earth most likely has a plasma dome surrounding it, very high up in the atmosphere. Well, at least he's not saying the Earth's flat. Everything in nature makes a sphere. Everything that we see and observe makes a sphere, except this place is, we're so special, it's flat here. I don't want to go on that tangent, but like, start pissing people off. Those people get pissed when you don't agree with them. Space is fake and it's flat, and if you don't agree with me, like, I hate you. Like, they get mad about it. Far above where any airplane can fly. Space snakes. I want to make a t-shirt that says Space Snakes on it. A space station or a rocket ship can't penetrate the dome, so unless this astronaut got permission by the overlords to travel past the dome, the above-mentioned astronaut was within the atmosphere. Our artificial sun and the moon are also within our atmosphere. He just threw that in there, didn't he? Our artificial sun. See that it's very close and not 384,400 kilometers away, far above the atmosphere. The same applies to the sun. Watch the sunset and think about it. If the astronaut would be allowed outside the plasma dome, he would most likely die. His human body is not equipped to withstand the cosmic water. They would have had to transport his soul from his human body to, for instance, a gray body. What is space anyway? Is it a vacuum, like NASA's telling us? Dude, did you do like a bunch of Adderall or meth before you wrote this book? Going on some tangents here, man. If I didn't get any sleep for about 3 or 4 days, I'd probably talk to an alien too. Do you think this is working? Do you think that'll get him on the show if I keep saying stuff like that? I don't think anybody else is reviewing this online, are they? Is space a vacuum like NASA's telling us? It's not. Space outside Earth is of a watery and wavy substance, and our planet is floating in this cosmic water. We can go back to basically any and all ancient texts and find reference to the cosmic water. Some readers might think I rely too much on ancient texts, but I have found they often tell more truths about what is occurring in the past and our environment than our current history and science books. The past is ever changing, as we shall see in the time chapter. Ooh. Today, however, many scientists are acknowledging that space is water, and it comprises plasma, or highways, that connect all celestial bodies in the universe. Yeah, didn't we have a ship or something that came back that it supposedly had like plankton on it, right? I think it did. Like that, unless that was it was years ago when we read that article on the air. I remember it, but it was talking about how I don't know if it was a returning ship or whatever, but the damn thing had plankton on it. So this is old knowledge and wisdom, and people knew this many thousands of years ago. In these waters, all celestial bodies float. They're not in a black vacuum. So much of the cosmic water, which is spirit or ether, is lit up once we have rid ourselves of the delusion of a 4% universe. In this water, in its waveform, particles are being created with sound. Add sound to creation and you get a shape, such as a spiral galaxy, stars, planets, nebula, which are currently forming into star systems and asterisms. The universe is electromagnetic. The dome above Earth is protecting us from the cosmic water above, and thus God separated the upper water from the lower waters as mentioned in Genesis 1. I'm kind of with him on that one, actually. I think we had some really big researchers in this like electric universe and plasma universe on the show, 3 or 4 of them. They convinced me a long time ago. I haven't done a lot of research into it, so I couldn't tell you for an absolute fact, but I think there's some truth to it, honestly. So in the Gnostic texts, but also in most other ancient writings, we are told the planets in our solar system are different heavens or realms of ascension. All of them vibrate on different frequencies, and we can hear on the internet how Jupiter and Saturn sound, for example. One can then ask, how can sound travel through a vacuum? The answer is, it's not a vacuum, it's water. The celestial bodies in our solar system and the space that surrounds them, their sphere of influence, is a particular heaven, as discussed earlier, each one vibrating differently. These heavens of influences are also mentioned in the Book of Enoch and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Damn. Synchronicity right there. I didn't read ahead. Look, I hope he's taken into account that all of these books that he's mentioning, even the Book of Enoch, are channeled texts. Just saying, all spiritual books are channeled texts. I don't care how old or new they are. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, I remember when I was painting a house at night because I used to work 2 jobs. And so I would listen to like podcasts and I had a painting business, interior, whatever. No, who cares? But it'd be like it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I was listening to Josh Reeves' version of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And then I remember going outside and having a cigarette and looking up. And I saw this freaking like being, it wasn't like UFO, I don't think, but it was a freaking star that was bigger. It was like Venus bright. And it just kind of was like shining on me. And then it disappeared. And I thought, well, maybe it's a cloud or whatever. No, clear skies. There's nothing up there to make it go away. It was like my first kind of, or I think it was one of my first sort of unexplained experiences. And I always attributed that experience in my mind because it's like I started listening to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And in the text, that guy that channeled it says that if you listen to it, it'll open up things in your mind. So maybe I was delusional, or maybe I had an experience. I don't know. So from our level of existence, we live in a dead solar system. In our 3D frequency, there are only humans. If we could travel to another star system that has planets, we would find no life. Only if we traveled as soul avatars would the universe around us teem with life, because then we would be in the nanoverse. And the nanoverse is generously populated. But if we traveled in a body within this twisted frequency of visible light, we would encounter a desolate universe. Starting to get a real eerie feeling here. I don't know what it is. Visible light is a misnomer in a sense. It's probably the shack. It might fool us into thinking that this tiny frequency is all the light there is when it's not. Lucifer, we could say, not the light bearer, but the light limiter. The other spectra of the electromagnetic spectrum are lit up too. Visible light is just 4% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We get it. You've said that 100 times. But when we are in our avatars and leave the matrix, much more of it is lit up than what we can perceive today. We will notice the spider web or the plasma highways, and we will travel upon those to reach our destination, wherever in the universe that might be. That sounds cool. That sounds pretty cool. So thus, the transformation between macrocosm and microcosmos, once we are out of body, and particularly out of the matrix, is seamless. No need to consciously shrink ourselves into nano size. We already are nano size. But we've been fooled to believe the atomic and subatomic universe is tiny and hosts no life forms. We're told that they are just building blocks for our macrocosm, which is not true. We currently live in a simulation. Wouldn't it be trippy if, like, at least that part was real? I'd be cool with that. So once upon a time, when we stayed on Tiamat, we had the capacity to live as body, mind, souls in the nanoverse, and at the same time send out fire fragments on these cosmic highways and visit other realms and other dimensions. Fire fragments. That's pretty rad. And we could also communicate with the mother goddess, whose spirit was partly encapsulated in the planet. And through the reality the first Aryans lived in and the nano travel they practiced, they experienced the nanoverse. Nano travel is not only used to mingle with other star races or star beings, it's also practiced when the soul wants to send out fire probes to other dimensions, where they can gather information, as in the case of the Tiamat humans. So if someone has a problem, which they can't solve in the dimension they're in, they can send fire probes to higher dimensions to see what options are available and choose the solution that seems the most applicable. So fire probes, like, they send out crows in Game of Thrones. In the real world, we're just nano beings and we can send out fire probes. Cool. All right, I got a few. Let's see if I can. Oh, yeah, I can wrap this. All right. So dimensions and densities are just different vibrational states. We just need to vibrate in sync with a certain dimension and we'll be there. The problem is that our physical bodies are locked into what we call the third dimension. So in our natural state, we have access to all 144 Ka dimensions. Densities are just a vibration between two dimensions within a particular dimension. So to use an example, if your living room is one dimension, the solid wooden table is of one density and the pillow on the couch, which is softer, is of another. I think many people believe we are traveling when we go to other dimensions, almost like traveling in a spaceship, but that's not the case. We are staying put where we are. We just vibrate differently, and we will be in the dimension we desire. In fact, we are doing that daily, unbeknownst to ourselves. For instance, if we have a problem we try to solve, we look at it from different perspectives and angles or dimensions, and then the solution comes to us. We vibrate on a higher level than from where the problem was created. And then he's got a quote here that says, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." That quote is by Albert Einstein. So, albeit all humans are stuck in this third dimension, in a sense, we are not truly vibrating within this dimension because we also exist outside of it. Dimension can mean perspective as well. We are all on different levels of awareness, and just because we all see the same projection Inky set up in the 3D on a soul level, we all vibrate differently and operate from different densities and dimensions outside the matrix. When we leave our bodies and this construct behind, the 3D projection will dissolve for us personally. We will not see it anymore because we're not inside the projection. This is also why star beings outside the matrix need very precise coordinates to figure out where we are located. 3D is just an illusion, a simulation, and not considered part of the 144 Ka dimensions. Still, it has a vibration and a frequency like everything else. So, after having left the matrix behind, we are then in the nanoverse, or Orion, which is the spirit universe, the Ka, or void. We, as spirit, are already operating from there right now, but are stuck in a computer game. So we have decreased our vibrations to a level to fit the game, which is running inside our physical bodies, and in the astral, which is just a level of mind realm anyway. Once back in Orion, we will therefore vibrate on the level of our mind, on the level our mind is operating. So it's ultimately all about our minds. So we, as human soul, mind, spirit composites, can travel freely across the 144 dimensions, but there will most likely be a dimension from which each individual mainly operates, depending on the individual. Let's say that's the 68th dimension, but if you want to see the queen in the 144th, you probably can. And perhaps she needs to allow the visit first, but potentially you'd be able to. Oh man, that's trippy. And then he's got this picture of like this nano thing, right? See all that last part was pretty cool. I like that. I think they hid that too, like in Revelations when he was talking about the kingdom of heaven, and he talked about the different stones, and he said it was that of a man or that of an angel. So if you take like the Petruvian man and all that, and then you outline it, that's how big the walls were. And I did this on paper. You could draw it, and it comes out to like a pentagram. And then the length and the width and the breadth was the same height, right? So that's volume. So that's a three-dimensional shape. So now you got a dodecahedron. And then he put stones on each wall, and all the walls corresponded to the 12 tribes of Israel, which kind of correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac as well. And then Israel Regardie in his text also and the hermetic text also talks about the tree of life in a dome or a sphere, and then he shows all the geometrical shapes and stuff too. So technically, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, if we study the mysteries and then we study this is what we're trying to do here, the modern conscious explorers, we're going to start to see parallels, and then maybe we'll wake up. But there's a lot of stuff that I think he's right about, but there's also other stuff I do not think he's right about at all. Yeah, so draw out what I'm talking. Like if you read that part in Revelations, like, don't actually look at it as like it's exactly what he's saying, but that he's hiding a geometrical shape in there. So it's that of a man that's that like of an angel. So you can draw that on a piece of paper. It comes out into a pentagram, and the length and the width and the breadth are of the same height, and it has 12 walls or whatever. That's a dodecahedron, man. And you can put the stones and the tribes and the astrological signs on all of them and do this whole mystery thing, and then you get the riddle of the Sphinx, the 4 signs of the zodiac, all the elements, all the stuff we're trying to come together. It's all there. But, you know, I'm putting a lot of stuff together too, just like this guy in this book is. I can't prove it. All right, we got to get out of here. I can't wait to get past this stuff so we can get back into the OBE stuff, because I got a process that I'm doing here, but it's going to be fun. Hopefully we'll start traveling together. I gotta find a thing I can play so I don't get whatever. I'll just play this song so I don't get it taken down. Good night, y'all. Thanks for coming out. Please support the Fringe FM. Help us support our goal. At the Fringe FM, you can donate. You can get some swag. You can join the Patreon. I love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow night. Same time, same channel, right here. Live on the Fringe FM, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. Night night.